Hey there guys, welcome back to AFC Game by Game. This is my review of West Ham 1, Arsenal 0. First and foremost, apologies that the videos have been few and far between at the start of this year. In fact, they've been very far between. This is my first one of 2019, so I hope you all had a happy new year and a great Christmas. I'm sort of in between jobs at the minute, so I'm applying for a lot of jobs. My free time is practically taken up with job applications, job interviews, all that boring stuff, and I'm just trying to invest as much time into that as possible. So unfortunately this has taken a bit of a hit, but I'm back today doing a video on a game that I don't particularly want to talk about too much, but I think it's important to reflect on that game yesterday against West Ham United. 1-0 defeat, probably for me our worst performance of the season, or one of the worst. It was really disappointing to see us play in such a lethargic manner and really reminiscent of last season, which I hate to say. And first and foremost, I don't want to make this too much about Unai Emery. I do think he got it wrong yesterday, and just because it's his first season at Arsenal and because he's getting used to things, he's not immune to criticism. I do think he got it very, very wrong yesterday, right from the get-go, and I think it's not the first time he's got it wrong this season, and I think it's right that he is criticised for the mistakes that he does make throughout the course of the game. But it's not just him. Player performances, there was a lack of commitment I thought yesterday from certain players, but I mean some of the decisions were just absolutely baffling. Of course, Mesut Ozil's omission from the side will take the spotlight once again. Not that I wanted to too much, but it's something that definitely has to be spoken about. But we're in a precarious situation now, because the United game was just finished against Tottenham Hotspur. They won 1-0. We're level on points with them now. Chelsea won yesterday, so they're 6 points ahead of us. I remember this is going quite similarly to how things went last year. We're practically on the same level of points that we had this time last year. And of course, this is a season where Unai Emery's trying to get new players in. He's trying to get his starting lineup going. But to be honest, apart from that 22-game unbeaten run, we had to be improving more. I really do believe that. And I know that it's tough when you've got an owner like Stan Kroenke who does not want to invest a penny into this football club. From his perspective as a business owner, why would you? I mean, his assets have doubled over the 10-year period that he's owned Arsenal Football Club. So I can understand why he wouldn't do that. And it's a horrible situation to be in for a football fan. But that's sadly how it is for supporters of Arsenal, and Stan Kroenke won't be selling Arsenal anytime soon. There's no doubt about that. And if you think that by boycotting games and refusing to buy burgers and beers at the Emirates on match days is going to have an impact on that, you could not be more wrong. He could not care less about that, because a couple of million quid on a match day is a drop in the ocean to a multi-billionaire, not millionaire, billionaire. So yeah, that's something that is going to take a lot more than not buying hot dogs on match days to get Stan Kroenke out of the club. But that aside, this is more about the performance than the ownership at Arsenal Football Club. I thought the lineup was something that I was left scratching my head at once again. We had this kind of announcement, this really positive announcement before the West Ham game from Arsenal, that we had a load of players that were back returning from training and were going to be in the team for the game on Saturday. Mesut Ozil being the main one, Bellerin, Monreal, etc. Amongst them as well. But Ozil was the main one. He's the player that I definitely wanted to see at least on the substitutes bench for this game. And whether he was out the game through injury or whether it was a tactical decision, as Unai Emery seems to make, I do wonder what his future is at Arsenal Football Club, if there even is one. I'm looking at our away games this season. Southampton away, where we lost and Ozil was hooked. Chelsea away, where he was hooked at half-time. I struggle to see Mesut Ozil having a future at Arsenal if Unai Emery is going to be the manager. And I find it baffling, because you've got someone like Alex Iwobi who has essentially taken over the role of Mesut Ozil, and he works extremely hard and he's improved leaps and bounds this season. I thought he did really well yesterday. But if you're looking at the players that we've got, in terms of replacing someone like Iwobi, Mesut Ozil is one of the most creative players in the world. With Lacazette and Aubameyang in front of him, in a big open pitch like West Ham away, I definitely would have put him in at least the substitutes bench for this game. I find it baffling that he wasn't even in the team, especially when you've got three fullbacks in Bellerin, Lichtsteiner and Monreal on the bench. I just find it bizarre. I find it really, really bizarre. And it'll be interesting to see whether he's in the matchday squad for our game on Saturday against Chelsea, should I say. I mean, we've got some really tough games coming up. Really, really tough games. If we lose that game to Chelsea, even if we draw, I think we're kind of essentially out of the top four. Our best hope of a trophy this season is beating Man United in the FA Cup. That's a really tough game as well. We've got United at home in the league. We've got City away coming up. We could find ourselves so far away from the top four. It's not a good situation to be in. It's really not a good situation to be in at all at the minute. And we really have to get a win against Chelsea next weekend. It's imperative that we do. But the only way we're going to do that is if we get the team lineup right from the start of the game. Three centre-backs. I'm not too against this if it's got the right players in it. I haven't got too much of an issue with a back three of Mustafi, Socrates and Koscielny. I think it's a very solid, a very experienced back three. Question marks over Koscielny considering how old he is. But I think he, since he's come back from injury, I think we all know that he's not going to be the player that he once was. But he's showing signs of improvement. But to play him week in, week out is something that I don't think we can be too dependent on at the minute. And then if we have proper wing-backs in Kolasinac and Bellerin, that gives us another option, another dimension, and a proper midfield too of Xhaka, Torreira. Mesut Ozil playing in behind a front two of Lacazette and Aubameyang. That's when I think two at the front can work. Not when we've got Iwobi, a midfield two of Xhaka and Guendouzi and Maitland-Niles at right wing-back. It doesn't work. We just simply don't have the players to play that system. And it's just too defensive-minded. It's far too defensive-minded. Kolasinac isn't a left-back, essentially. He's great at going forward, but he can't defend at all. You saw how exposed our left-hand side was in that game against West Ham and how it has been throughout practically all of this season. On the right side, it's the same with Bellerin. Isn't the greatest at defending, but he's brilliant going forward. And that's why I can get behind this three-at-the-back system when we've got those two players playing and we've got a proper midfield of Xhaka and Torreira. Couldn't understand why Torreira didn't start. I know he's got 4 yellow cards, but at this point, what's it matter? Okay, he's great. He's going to play the game against Chelsea, but we've lost the game against West Ham. So how valuable is that going to be to us? Now. So I'm surprised about why he didn't start. Again, Mesut Ozil was surprised about why he didn't start. And I'm really worried that given that Aaron Ramsey is off to Juventus, we're being so reliant on him off the bench game after game after game. It's mental. But anyway, that aside, I actually thought this game started pretty positively. We had some really good Spurs possession. We had that really good chance through Alex Lacazette, which was kind of the first chance of the game. But as the game grew on, West Ham certainly got into it a little bit more. We really took our foot off the gas and we sort of lulled into second gear throughout the course of the entire match, throughout the course of this game, and allowed West Ham to invite pressure onto us. I don't know where this work ethic, this physical side that I saw early on in the season has gone. We seem to have whimpered back into the typical Arsenal that I've seen over so many years. We don't seem to be as combative, as dominant as we were earlier on in the season when we were having that 22-game unbeaten run. We just seem to have gone back into our shell, which is a real shame because we were making a lot of progress on that front. And it's the first time that we haven't scored this season since the Man City game, so that's quite telling of how poor we were yesterday. Really, really poor. Aubameyang ineffective throughout the course of the game. Lacazette ineffective as well, essentially. But I do think it's difficult for them when they're playing in a system where they're barely touching the ball. They are barely seeing any of the ball. But we went out in this game with a whimper. I can't think of too many chances that we created. I was looking at West Ham's attack at the start of the game. I'm thinking Anderson, Nasri, Antonio, Arnautovic in a 4-2-3-1. That is arguably a little bit better than our attack. Certainly more balanced, a lot more balanced. Nasri, I thought, I don't like the guy at all, but he did really well to get the assist for the goal. He had a really good game yesterday, and he looks a lot better than some of our midfielders. Xhaka looks a lot better alongside Torreira, and Torreira looks a lot better alongside Xhaka. The fact we're starting Guendouzi, and I've mentioned this a few times, and I'm not the only one talking about it, Guendouzi, who is 19 years old, and we play him like a seasoned veteran, it does not make sense to me at all, especially when his performances, yeah, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're very good, and he does very good things in games, but he is overconfident, I think, at times. He's just not ready to start in these games, week in, week out. He's just not ready. It's the equivalent of Manchester City playing Phil Foden week in, week out. Doesn't make sense to me. Just doesn't make sense, especially when you've got Torreira on the bench, especially when you've got someone like Mesut Ozil in a team, especially whilst you've still got Aaron Ramsey in the team, whilst he's still here. Just it doesn't add up in my mind. It really doesn't. But West Ham thoroughly deserving of the win. Great goal by Declan Rice as well. The player I would at least expected to score, and what a season he's having, by the way. What a gem England have got on their hands there. He looks really, really good. But West Ham, I thought, looked good all round. Their defensive stability was really in place. They looked a lot better than they did when they came to the Emirates in August, and even then I thought they looked quite decent. But they look like a team that's really well set up. They're having a very good time this season, and they were going to be a dangerous team. But to go there and play with effectively 7 defensive-minded players behind the ball just isn't the Arsenal way of playing, and it's not the way of playing that I want to see throughout the course of the season. I'd like to see us go back to a 4-2-3-1 system. We know that's what Unai Emery prefers. When we played that game against Leicester earlier on in the season, we had a brilliant performance. We had a brilliant goal scored in that game as well. If it means sacrificing one of Aubameyang or Lacazette, then so be it. I know that we've got players out injured. I know that we've got no natural wide men, but I mean, if we could just go back to having a proper playmaker in Mesut Ozil, having a proper midfield too of Xhaka and Serrero, having a bit more balance across the back line, bringing partnerships together, because we just don't know what the starting 11 is going to be. And I hate the idea that we have these different combinations of back threes week in, week out. It's not healthy for the team whatsoever. But top 4 is really, I think it's going to be so difficult to get. I'm not sure I'm convinced just yet by this team that we're going to be able to make it. And if it's true that we can't sign anyone this window, we can only bring in loan players, what loan player can we bring in that is going to help us get a top 4 finish in the Premier League, the toughest league in the world? I think it's very unlikely that we'll be able to bring anyone in that's capable of getting us to a top 4 finish. But I don't want to speak too soon, because we're 6 points off Chelsea, and I think we're something like 8 points off Spurs. So look how quickly United have caught us up. If we go on a run of form, which we need to now, then there's no reason why we can't catch up with the teams above us. But that's got to start with a win against Chelsea. It has to, and it's got to be a win against United as well. I know that for where we are as a club, that's going to be incredibly difficult, but we have to do it. We have to get a bit of leeway between us and Man United, who are looking like a different team now under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I've said that wrong, but they are looking like a very good side at the minute, it has to be said. Chelsea, I think, are on the ropes a little bit. They had a win against Newcastle yesterday, but I think they're going to be the side that are our best bet of dropping outside the top 4. But it's a massive game next weekend, absolutely massive. It's probably the biggest game of the season for us in terms of what it could represent. But anyway, I'm going to wrap up there, guys. Yesterday was a real write-off, but a lot of talking points to be had, and a lot of improvement has to be made before we go into that game against Chelsea. We've got a massive week ahead of us. Anyway, guys, please do drop a like on the video if you have enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments box below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and as always, I'll speak to you very soon. See you later, guys.